Secondary copper minerals are some of the easiest secondary minerals to identify because they're often bright blue or green. So let's start with those. I'm Nick Tate, and this is another video in the series of Fieldcraft for Geologists. This is the headline version for YouTube. If you want the complete video, go to the link in the description below, and for the price of a couple of hours of your time in the field trying to figure out what copper minerals are, you'll get the complete version of this video, all the others in the Fieldcraft series, and any other new videos I shoot as I find interesting things in the field. I'm here at an old historical mining pit, and scattered around on the dumps there's some really nice examples of different secondary copper minerals. The most common one that most people will be familiar with is malachite. The colour varies quite a lot, but it's usually some variety of blue-green or grey-green like this. When it's growing into an open cavity, it often forms rounded colliform lumps, and when you break those in half, you'll find a fine radiating pattern that's perpendicular to the layers. Probably the second most common secondary copper mineral is azurite. It's this bright blue mineral here. It's pretty hard to miss, and fortunately, it's about the only mineral that has that bright blue colour. There's only two other minerals that are close. One is lazurite and the other one is sodalite, and neither of those are commonly associated with copper deposits. So if you see that with some other evidence of copper, malachite for example, then you're almost certain that it's azurite. Most of the time you just see these surface crusts like this. Very occasionally you'll see crystals. They're in the monoclinic system, but they often appear as crusts of small octahedra or short prisms. They're a deep, dark azure blue colour that gives the mineral its name. Another common secondary mineral of copper is chalcocite. It's this steely grey material here, just between all the malachite and azurite. It's pretty soft and you can scratch it easily with a scriber. And if you cut the rock with a diamond saw, you'll see it smears a bit like a metal. It's a sulfide of copper that usually forms in the supergene zone at or very near to the water table. The grade of the material at the water table is often upgraded because copper leached from the surface in the gossans is reprecipitated over the top of other sulfides. In fact, that's what's happening here. A lot of this chalcocite is precipitating over the top of that primary chalcopyrite. Chalcocite also comes in a black sooty form that you sometimes find a bit above the water table. It's pretty hard to recognise because most of the black sooty minerals you find are actually oxides of either iron or manganese or a combination of the two. It doesn't really matter, it'll show up in the assay, so if it's black and sooty and you don't know what it is, put it in a bag and send it to the lab. One of the less common copper secondary minerals is cuprite. When you see it in outcrop, it sometimes shows as this blood red earthy material around the outside of other minerals like malachite and azurite. Very occasionally in open cavities you'll find crystals of it growing, and they form very neat octahedra similar to magnetite, except that when you break them and hold a piece up to the sunlight, they're just slightly translucent, and the thin edges you'll see a brilliant blood red colour just like rubies. Another secondary copper mineral that you might come across from time to time, particularly in dry climates like this one, is Chrysocolla. Chrysocolla is usually a pale, translucent aqua green colour like this, and it often forms these rounded botryoidal surfaces on top of other minerals like the jasper here. It's a copper silicate, and as you can see it's quite hard, and in fact it's often a mixture between Chrysocolla and fine druzy quartz or chalcedonic silica like it is here. Now here's another piece that'll show you a little bit of the variation you can get in the colour of Chrysocolla. There's some over here that's almost transparent, in fact that's probably mostly chalcedonic silica, to a bit in here that's almost blue. And then you can compare that with this area down here that's actually a piece of malachite with its usual bright green colour. One other secondary copper mineral that looks a bit like this is turquoise. It's a little bit darker blue than this and a little bit softer because it's a phosphate rather than a silicate. It's also a little bit less common because you need a host rock with some phosphorus in it to make that copper phosphate, and phosphorus rich rocks are pretty rare.